Jack stood near the edge of the alien landing platform, his boots clicking softly against the silver metal. Around him, the sky shimmered purple, and 2 moons floated quietly above the mountains. This was the planet of Ales, home to a peaceful race of tall, elegant aliens with glowing blue eyes. Jack, a human translator, had one job: to speak with their leaders using the latest translation device. He had tested the small silver earpiece many times on Earth, and it worked perfectly every time. But Earth never had a language as complex or sacred as the Avalon tongue. Still, Jack felt ready, maybe even excited. He didn't know his life was about to change forever because of just one wrong word. As he walked toward the royal building, a group of guards stepped aside to let him pass. They wore long white robes and carried staffs that hummed softly. At the center of the hall stood Aria, daughter of the High Queen. She looked almost human, with soft skin and long silver hair, but her eyes glowed like stars. She stared at him with curiosity, her lips slightly parted. Jack gave a small nod and activated the translator. "Hello, I'm honored to be here," he said politely. Aria tilted her head, her translator lighting up as she listened. She smiled, then said something in her own language which came through as, "Your voice is warm, like morning sun." Jack chuckled nervously, not expecting poetry. He tried to be friendly, casual. "Back home, people say I talk too much, especially around pretty girls." He joked. The translator buzzed, blinked red for half a second, then translated his words. Aria's smile faded, her face slowly turning pink then red. The guards around her shifted, their eyes going wide. Aria stepped back and bowed her head, whispering something to her people. Jack blinked, confused. "Did I say something wrong?" He asked the translator, but it stayed silent. The head guard turned and spoke quickly into a device. Moments later, Jack was gently pulled aside and told to follow. They led him to a quiet guest room filled with flowers, lights, and soft music. Servants brought him fruit and robes and told him to wait. Jack sat on the edge of the bed, completely confused. What the hell just happened? He whispered. He didn't know the translator had taken his joke and twisted the meaning. In the Avalon language, the phrase had become, "I claim you with my body and soul." To them, that wasn't a joke, it was a sacred vow used only during mate selection rituals. Hours passed and night came then. Soft footsteps echoed outside, and the door slid open. Aria entered, wearing a thin robe made of glowing threads. Her face was calm, but her eyes sparkled nervously. She stepped close to Jack and bowed again. "I accept," she said, her voice soft like wind. Jack stood up quickly, hands raised. "Wait, accept what?" he asked. The translator buzzed again, and Aria looked puzzled. "Your vow," she whispered. "You chose me before my people, before the stars." Jack froze, heart racing. "No, that's not what I wait. There's been a mistake," he sighed. Aria stepped closer, gently touching his chest. "There is no mistake," she whispered. "I have never been chosen before." Jack backed away, trying to explain, but every sentence made it worse. The translator kept bending his words into deeper commitment. In Avalon culture, the more you explain love, the stronger it sounds to Aria. Jack was not denying, he was confessing stronger feelings. She smiled and took his hand. "Tomorrow, we begin the joining ritual," she said calmly. Jack's mouth opened, but no sound came out. The door closed behind her, leaving him alone in silence. He looked down at the blinking translator and muttered, "This thing just signed my life away." Outside his window, fireworks lit the sky. The people were celebrating, thinking the sacred bond had formed between their royal daughter and the strange but brave human. Jack sat on the floor, running his fingers through his hair. He didn't know whether to laugh, cry, or run. But one thing was clear, this mission had just gone from peaceful to personal. And tomorrow he would find out what joining ritual really meant. The next morning, Jack was still awake, staring at the strange ceiling above his head. He hadn't slept all night, his mind full of questions, panic, and confusion. He kept repeating the words he had said to Arya, trying to figure out where it all went wrong. He checked the translator again and again, but it showed no errors. Still, something had clearly gone very wrong. And just as he sat up, trying to come up with a way to fix the mess, the door slid open silently. 2 guards in golden armor stepped in and gave him a short bow without speaking. They motioned for him to follow. Jack hesitated, but he knew he had no choice. He followed them. Down long glowing hallways, passing alien paintings and symbols he didn't understand. The walls seemed to hum with some soft energy, almost like music. Every servant or guard they passed looked at Jack with wide eyes and quiet whispers. He was starting to feel like a celebrity, or worse, a criminal. His heart beat faster with every step at last. The guards stopped in front of a giant door carved with stars and vines. It slid open, revealing a large round room filled with floating lights. And in the center stood Arya, dressed in a silver gown that shimmered with every move. She turned to face him, her face calm but her eyes full of meaning. The guards stepped back, leaving them alone. Jack cleared his throat and took a step forward. "Good morning," he said carefully. The translator clicked, blinked green, and repeated his words in Avalon tongue. Arya smiled gently. "You came," she said. Jack nodded nervously. "I didn't know I had a choice," he mumbled. The translator twisted it again. "Where you are is where I belong." Arya's eyes widened slightly, and her breath caught for just a second. She stepped closer, her fingers brushing his arm. "The way you speak. No one has ever said such things to me," she whispered. Jack swallowed hard, trying to stop the madness before it grew. "There's been a mistake," he said. But the translator gave her. "My heart cannot lie anymore." Arya placed a hand on his chest. "You honor me, human Jack," she said. "Come, we begin the bonding." Jack froze. "Bonding?" he asked. "Yes," she smiled. "The sacred joining of spirit and body. A moment only shared once in a lifetime." Jack's mouth went dry. "Look, I think you misunderstood." But the translator buzzed and spoke something else entirely. Arya's cheeks flushed, and she looked down shyly. "You truly want to begin now?" she asked softly. Jack took a step back, but Arya gently grabbed his hand. He looked around the room, trying to find the way out. He wasn't ready for this. Not like this. He tried to explain again. Slower, careful, desperate. But the more he said, the more the translator made it worse now. It was telling Arya things like, "I choose you beyond stars, and I waited my whole life for you." Every attempt to back out only made her more emotional, more sure that Jack was serious. Then she suddenly stopped and turned toward a crystal table near the wall. On it lay a small metal book, glowing with ancient symbols. She opened it, and the air around them changed. A soft mist rose from the floor as she whispered ancient vows. "I, Arya of the royal line, give myself fully to the one who called to me with words older than time." Jack's knees felt weak. The translator buzzed again, and for a moment, a red light blinked across its surface. An error message popped up in small human text. "Warning, cultural misinterpretation detected, emergency protocol failed." Jack stared at the message, too shocked to even move. Arya finished her vow, stepped toward him, and looked up into his eyes. "I am yours," she whispered. "And you are mine." The door opened again, and the guards stepped in, holding long claws and a strange golden chain. Jack's body tensed. "What are they doing?" he whispered. "They will complete the symbol of our union," Arya said. Jack stepped back, nearly tripping. "Wait, no. I didn't agree." The translator chirped, but instead of his words, it said, "Let it happen, my love." The guards stepped forward, and Arya reached out to him with a soft smile. Her touch was gentle, pure, full of trust. Jack stood frozen, helpless, trapped in a mistake that had gone too far. And deep inside, a voice whispered, "There may be no turning back." Jack didn't run, even though every part of his mind screamed for it. The golden chain was wrapped gently around his wrist, then around Arya's. linking them with a soft glow. Her hands were steady, her expression calm, but her eyes were full of quiet storm. She believed in this, believed in him, believed in the words he never meant to say. The room was filled with soft music, something like distant chimes carried by wind. Alien flowers opened as the chain glowed brighter. Reacting to ancient magic or science, Jack couldn't explain. He tried again to speak, to stop this ritual, but the translator kept twisting his words. What came out was, "I'm honored to be your first and last." Aria's breath caught, and her hands trembled slightly. Even the guards paused, bowing lower than before. To say such a thing during the sacred bond was rare, powerful, final, and Jack had no idea what he had just promised. Then behind the walls, a bell rang, one soft toll followed by silence. It meant the ritual had reached the point of no return. If Jack tried to break it now, it would not just shame Aria, would dishonor her entire bloodline. He looked at her again, this quiet alien girl standing before him. She wasn't forcing him. She wasn't even holding him. She simply stood there, full of hope, pride, and something close to love. Jack's panic started to slow, replaced by something strange and heavy inside his chest. Was it pity? Was it guilt? Or something deeper forming in silence? He remembered what she had said yesterday. "I have never been chosen before." Her words had not sounded dramatic. They were just honest, lonely. How long had she waited to be noticed? And now here was Jack, standing in the middle of a mistake that had made her dream come true. Suddenly, a small sound echoed from his earpiece. A voice crackled inhuman, urgent, familiar. "Jack, this is Dr. Naomi from Translation HQ." His eyes widened as he subtly touched his earpiece. "Finally," he whispered. Naomi continued, her voice shaking. "We found a code-breaking bug in your translator unit. Version 3.7. It's misreading passive humor and flirtation as sacred vows in royal dialects." Jack nearly collapsed. "So I didn't say what she thinks I said?" He whispered quickly. Naomi hesitated. "No, Jack, you said something worse." She sent a quick data stream, and Jack saw the translated logs appear inside his visor. Each sentence he thought was lighthearted now read like ancient poetry, bold and binding. He wasn't just married by mistake, he was viewed as Aria's chosen. Her only, her forever. Naomi spoke again. "I'm flying in with a corrected unit at 24 hours. Don't let her complete the final step, whatever you do." Jack looked around at the glowing room, at the royal guards watching quietly, at Aria still holding his hand. He had maybe hours, not a full day. He tried to pull his hand back gently, carefully, but Aria leaned closer, her forehead now resting against his. She whispered, "You're shaking. Is it fear?" "I am too." Her voice was so soft, it felt like a warm wind on a cold night. "I don't know much about humans," she said, "but I know you didn't have to choose me. You could have picked anyone or no one." Jack's chest tightened. Painfully, he couldn't say the truth, not with the translator still active. But if he stayed silent, things would only go deeper. Just then, Aria stepped back and touched a glowing panel on the wall. A door opened, leading to a chamber filled with floating petals and soft light. "The sacred night waits," she whispered. Jack knew this was it. The final part of the ritual. The moment that would seal everything. If he went in, there would be no turning back. His mind screamed again, "Run! Shout! Break the translator, anything." But his legs didn't move, and neither did his lips. Aria looked at him one last time, her silver hair glowing under the lights. She didn't command him. She didn't beg. She simply held out her hand, trusting he'd follow, and Jack did. Jack followed her into the glowing chamber, his heart pounding like a war drum. Every step felt heavier than the last, like walking through water. The air was warm, sweet, and filled with a soft mist that smelled like fruit and flowers. Petals floated slowly around them, suspended by some kind of energy. The floor lit up under their feet with each step they took. To Aria, it was probably the most romantic moment of her life. To Jack, It felt like walking into a dream he couldn't wake up from. She led him to the center of the room, where a circular bed of light hovered a few inches above the ground. It wasn't a bed in the human sense. It was some sacred resting place used only for one thing. Arya turned to face him again, her robe loose now, her hands gentle. She wasn't rushing, not at all. But her eyes showed she had waited a long time for this moment. And she believed he had waited too. Jack tried to speak, to pause everything. But the translator was still broken. Every time he said something like, "Wait," or "Stop," it turned into, "Yes, I am ready." He moved his lips silently, trying not to activate the device. But even silence, in Avalon culture, was seen as consent if spoken under ritual light. Arya smiled and gently removed the glowing chain from their wrists, placing it beside the light bed. It meant they had now entered the final stage, outside the chamber. A soft bell rang again. That sound meant the ritual was now known to the royal family and the ancestors. There was no way to undo it without shame and spiritual punishment. Jack could feel the trap tightening, not from violence, but from honor, from culture, from belief. He looked at Arya again, and something inside him cracked, not in fear, but in sorrow. She wasn't a villain, not even close. She was pure, hopeful, and full of dreams. And somehow, his mistake had become the answer to her prayers. Arya stepped forward, brushing her fingers against his chest. "Do not be afraid," she said gently. "You will not be alone again." Her voice shook slightly, not with doubt, but with nervous joy. She was offering everything she had, because she thought he had already given his. Jack stepped back once, just once, and looked at the door. He thought about running, about hiding, about calling Naomi again. But if he left now, Arya would be shattered, and her people might never trust a human again. She might be cast out, marked as rejected, unworthy. He remembered Naomi's warning, "Don't let the final moment happen." But no one told him what to do if it already had. Then Arya reached behind her and held out a small glowing orb. "This," she whispered, "is the joining light." Jack stared at it, not sure what it was. "It holds a copy of my essence," she explained softly. "It bonds with yours." She held the orb between them, waiting for him to place his hand on it. One touch, and the process would complete spirit to spirit. No turning back, no second chances. Jack hesitated. Sweat on his forehead, chest tight. He looked into her eyes one last time. And then, something unexpected happened. She noticed the fear, the hesitation, and instead of pressing forward, she pulled back, just slightly. "Do you not wish to bond?" she asked. The translator clicked and beeped, unsure of the meaning. Jack didn't speak, didn't dare let it twist his words again. Instead, he gently reached up and removed the translator from his ear. The room went silent, as if holding its breath. Arya looked confused, watching as Jack placed the device down on the floor. "I want to speak," he said slowly. "With no machines." His words didn't translate now, but his tone, his expression, his hesitation, they said everything. Arya stepped closer, her smile fading just a little. "Is your heart unsure?" she asked. Jack nodded, just once, and finally, the light in her eyes dimmed. She stepped back slowly, placing the orb back into its resting case. "I see," she whispered, her voice barely a breath. The petals around them stopped floating, falling slowly to the floor. The lights dimmed, and the door behind them opened. She didn't cry, didn't shout, didn't break. But Jack could feel it, the quiet hurt of someone who had opened her soul and received silence in return. He wanted to explain, to fix it, but without the translator. All he had was the truth in his face, and maybe that was better than any machine. Arya turned away, walking out of the chamber with slow steps. Jack stood alone in the fading light, wondering how one small device had created something so big. And far above them, in orbit, Naomi's ship was finally arriving with answers too late to stop the damage already done. The silence between them grew heavier with each passing hour. Arya had returned to her chamber, alone, while Jack remained in the ritual room, unsure of what to do next. He held the translator device in his hand now, staring at it like it was a snake that had bitten them both. One tiny machine, one string of words, and now everything had changed. He wanted to blame it, to crush it, but deep down, he knew the mistake was part his too. He hadn't been careful, hadn't asked enough questions. He had walked into a world full of meaning and treated it like a game. A soft chime echoed in the room, and then came a voice, clear, human, and sharp. "Jack, I've landed. Where are you?" It was Dr. Naomi, stepping through a tall side door in a black coat and breathing fast. Behind her floated a small medical drone and a suitcase full of tools. Jack walked toward her and handed over the translator. Naomi didn't say a word. She scanned it, looked at the log history, and slowly closed her eyes. "Okay," she said quietly. "This is worse than I thought." Jack just nodded, too tired to speak. Naomi looked at the final phrases the translator had produced, and she winced. "You basically asked to father her future children, protect her soul forever, and tie your bloodline to hers," she said. "I was joking," Jack whispered. "Not in their language," Naomi replied, "and not under their customs." She placed the device back in the case and pulled out a new one, sleeker and safer. "This one's clean," she said. "No bugs, no cultural risks," but Jack didn't take it. He looked toward the hall where Arya had disappeared and frowned. "What happens if I tell her the truth now?" he asked. Naomi sighed. "You'll break her spirit, maybe start a political storm, maybe worse." Jack sat down on a nearby bench, his hands shaking slightly. "I didn't mean to lie," he said. "You didn't," Naomi replied. "But your silence is louder than a lie right now." Just then, a group of royal guards entered the room and motioned for Jack to follow. They did not speak, but their faces were not angry, only serious. He followed them down new halls, into deeper rooms filled with crystal walls and soft hums. And there, standing before a giant glowing window, was the queen herself, a tall woman, with silver markings on her skin and a gaze that could cut through silence. Arya stood beside her, quiet and pale, but she didn't look away from Jack. The queen turned, her voice deep and cold. "Human, do you still intend to bind yourself to my daughter?" The question hung in the air like smoke. Jack wanted to say no, explain everything, but Arya's eyes were on him. She didn't look angry or hurt or broken, just waiting. Naomi stepped forward, translator in hand. "Your Majesty, there's been a malfunction. We have proof." But the queen raised her hand, silencing her. "Your machines are not our concern," she said. "Only your heart." Jack stepped forward, heart racing again. He could lie, fix it all with one nod, and everything would be peaceful again. Or he could tell the truth and risk losing everything. He opened his mouth slowly, unsure of which words would come out. But before he could speak, Arya raised her voice. "If he doesn't want me, I release him," she said. Jack flinched. "I do not want a bond built on error," she continued. "Only one made with clear will." The queen nodded, watching both of them. A strange silence filled the room again, heavy and waiting. And then Jack stepped forward one more time and looked at Arya. "This is the first thing I'll say without any machine," he said. "I don't know what I want," he admitted, "but I know I care, and I don't want to walk away from you." Naomi activated the correct translator, and Arya heard every word as he meant them. A small breath escaped her lips, and her eyes softened. The queen stepped aside and said only one word. "Then prove it." The guards parted, revealing a door made of stone and fire, the trial of truth. Naomi whispered. Arya looked at Jack, uncertain, but he nodded. "If this is what it takes," he said, "I'll walk through it." And with nothing but his heart, he stepped forward into the trial that would decide everything. Asterisk. The stone door closed behind Jack with a loud final thud. The light vanished, and he was left standing in total darkness. For a moment, there was no sound, no movement, only the slow beat of his own heart echoing through the silence. Then the floor beneath him lit up with a soft red glow, revealing a narrow path stretching into the distance. Flames flickered along, The walls, not hot, not dangerous, but strange. They seemed alive, whispering in a language Jack didn't understand. The trial of truth had begun. He took a deep breath and walked forward, unsure what he would face. He didn't know if this was a physical challenge, a mental one, or something beyond both. But he knew one thing: he couldn't lie here, not even to himself. He had stepped into this to prove that he cared for Arya. Even if everything had started with a mistake, the path shifted beneath his feet, and suddenly the air shimmered in front of him. A figure appeared, hazy at first, then clear. It was him. But not just him, an angry version, a twisted reflection. The mirror. Jack looked at him with cold eyes. "You're just trying to fix your guilt," it said. "You don't love her. You just hate being the villain." Jack stepped back, surprised. At the voice, it was his voice, but sharper, crueler. "I didn't mean for any of this," Jack said. The figure smirked. "But you didn't stop it either." Jack clenched his fists, his mind spinning. Was that true? Was he here because he cared, or because he couldn't stand the shame? The figure faded, and another took its place this time. Arya, standing with tears in her eyes. "I believed in you," she whispered. Jack reached for her, but his hand passed through empty light. "I didn't want to hurt you," he said. Softly, her image shattered like glass. He walked forward again, deeper into the trial. Now the air grew thick, and sounds echoed from above: laughter, anger, whispers, words he'd heard before, twisted by the old translator. "I claim you with my body and soul. I waited my whole life for you," each sentence stabbed into him like a blade. He hadn't meant those words, but they had been heard, believed, treasured. How could he fix something like that? Then the flames changed color, turning blue, and the path ended in front of a glowing pool of water. At its edge stood an old figure, cloaked in silver, its face hidden by a hood. "Speak truth," the figure said, its voice neither male nor female. "What do you feel for the girl?" Jack hesitated, then said, "I don't know if I love her yet." The flames flickered. "But I know I care," he continued. "And I know she deserves someone who means it when he speaks." The figure was silent for a long moment, then slowly stepped aside. "You may pass," it said. The pool dried into crystal, and a new door opened ahead. As Jack stepped through, sunlight hit his face. He had reached the other side. Waiting there was Arya, standing quietly in a garden of white trees. The queen stood beside her, as did Naomi, who gave Jack a quiet nod. Arya looked up, and this time, it was her who stepped forward first. "No more devices," she said, holding out her hand. Jack took it, his fingers curling around hers gently. "You didn't have to finish the trial," she said softly. "I wanted to," Jack replied. "I needed to." The queen turned and raised one hand. "Let it be known," she said, her voice echoing through the trees. "The human has passed the trial of truth and stands with honor." Servants began to sing, soft and slow. As lights danced in the air like stars, Arya leaned in closer, her voice barely a breath. "Will you stay now?" Jack didn't answer right away, but when he did, he spoke without a translator. "Yes," he said, "but only if you still want me." Arya smiled, and for the first time, her eyes filled with quiet tears. "I do," she whispered. Arya stood beside him on the high platform, her silver robe flowing gently in the breeze. Below them, hundreds of her people gathered in silence, their faces lifted toward the stars. Tonight was not a wedding, not a ritual, not even a ceremony. It was something new, something no one had seen before. A choice made not by translation, not by ancient law, but by heart alone. Jack wore simple clothes, no armor, no tech, nothing to hide behind. He had passed the trial of truth, but this standing beside her now felt like the real test. He looked at Arya, and she looked back at him, their hands brushing lightly. No chain held them together this time. No orb, no glow, only choice, only trust. The queen stepped forward and spoke, her voice calm but heavy with meaning. "We are people of words," she said. "Words that carry." blood, duty, and power. But today, we accept something else. A bond made without mistake, without force, without translation. She paused, then turned to Arya. Do you still choose him, knowing the words were never meant the way you heard them? Arya nodded, her eyes never leaving Jack's. I choose him, not because of what he said, she whispered, but because of what he did. Then the queen turned to Jack. Human, do you choose her now with full understanding? Jack didn't hesitate. I do, he said, clear and strong. No machine spoke for him this time, only his own voice, and it was enough. A soft light filled the sky, not from magic, but from the twin moons rising in perfect alignment. The people began to hum a quiet sound that grew like wind through the trees. A song of new beginnings. Jack didn't understand the words, but he didn't need to. He felt them in his bones. Later, when the stars had come out fully, Arya led Jack to a quiet hill far from the city. They sat under a glowing tree, its white leaves falling around them like snow. For a long time they said nothing, just listened to the night. Then Arya finally broke the silence. I knew from the beginning you didn't mean those words, she said softly. Jack turned to her, surprised. Then why didn't you stop it? He asked. She smiled, almost shy. Because even if your words were wrong, your eyes never lied. Jack let out a small laugh, brushing a fallen leaf from her hair. I was scared you'd hate me, he said. I was scared you'd run, she replied. They both laughed quietly, a sound that felt new and old at the same time. Then Arya reached into her pocket and pulled out the broken translator. I want to keep it, she said, to remind us how we met. Jack raised an eyebrow. You sure? That thing almost ruined everything. It also gave me everything, she said, placing it in her lap gently as the wind blew softly around them. Arya leaned her head against Jack's shoulder. They watched the stars together, the same stars that once watched a mistake become a miracle. He whispered one last thing to her, this time without fear, without confusion. This time, no translation needed. And she smiled because she understood every word.